Hey, tonight we're going to talk about the time when Rome and Greece collided, when the most powerful empire of the West met the oldest culture of the East. Spoiler, it wasn't great for everyone involved. If you're enjoying these bedtime stories about weird history, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. I know you're trying to fall asleep, and I'm about to tell you about wars and conquests, but trust me, it gets better. Now, find a cozy spot, take a slow, deep breath, and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. The year is 231 BC, and congratulations, you've just woken up in your small home in Athens, Greece. The good news, you're alive in one of the most cultured cities in the Mediterranean world. The bad news, your stomach is already cramping from hunger, and the thin wool blanket did little to keep you warm during the night. You push yourself up from your sleeping mat, your back aching from another night on the hard surface. Small bits of straw stick to your hair and clothing. The morning air is cool against your skin, and you can see your breath forming small clouds in the dim light, filtering through the single window of your modest home. As you step outside, the familiar sounds and smells of Athens greet you. The scent of baking bread mingles with the less pleasant odor of a city without proper sewage. Your sandals slap against the stone streets as you make your way toward the Agora, the center of Athenian life. You need to buy food, but more importantly, you need information. Athens isn't what it used to be. You've heard the elders tell stories of its golden age, when philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle walked these same streets, when the Parthenon was newly built and gleaming white instead of weathered, when Athens ruled the seas with its powerful navy. Those days are long gone now. Your city is just one of many Greek city-states caught in the endless political games between the larger Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged after Alexander the Great's death. To the north, Macedon, under King Antigonus Doson, is asserting its control. To the east, the Seleucid Empire stretches deep into Asia. To the south, Ptolemaic Egypt controls many islands and coastal territories. And far to the west, across the Adriatic Sea, a new power is rising: Rome. You've heard stories about these Romans. They're said to be a practical people, skilled in warfare and engineering, but lacking the sophisticated culture of Greeks. Most Athenians don't pay much attention to Rome. After all, what could these Western barbarians possibly want with Greece? Little do you know that events are already in motion that will bring these two worlds crashing together. As you enter the Agora, the central marketplace is already bustling with activity. Merchants shout about their wares, citizens argue politics, and slaves carry goods for their masters. You approach a fruit seller, exchanging a few coins for some figs and olives. Your stomach grumbles appreciatively as you pop an olive into your mouth, the rich, salty flavor momentarily distracting you from your worries. "Any news from the north?" you ask the merchant, who always seems to know the latest gossip. The man leans forward, his breath heavy with garlic from his morning meal. "They say the Illyrians are causing trouble again, raids on Greek merchant ships, bad for business." You nod thoughtfully. Illyria, the region across the Adriatic Sea from Italy, has long been a source of pirates and raiders, but this seems like a distant problem. Nothing that would affect your daily life in Athens. If only you knew how wrong you were. The Illyrians, under their ambitious Queen Teuta, have indeed been raiding ships with increasing boldness. Among those ships are vessels belonging to Italian merchants from Rome. And Rome, unlike the fractious Greek cities, doesn't take kindly to threats against its commercial interests. In the Roman Senate, heated debates are taking place. The Republic is still recovering from its exhausting but victorious First Punic War against Carthage. But many senators are pushing for action against these Illyrian pirates. But you know nothing of this as you finish your simple breakfast and head toward the workshop where you labor as a craftsman. Your hands are calloused from years of working with tools, shaping metal into useful objects. Today, you're working on a bronze lamp for a wealthy client, carefully hammering the soft metal into an elegant shape. Your workshop is small, but well lit by the Mediterranean sun streaming through the open doorway. The rhythmic sound of your hammer striking metal fills the space, occasionally interrupted by the sizzle of hot metal being quenched in water. Your muscles warm with the effort, and you fall into the familiar pattern of work that has defined your life. As the day progresses, you hear raised voices outside. Stepping into the street, you see a crowd gathering around a man who appears to be a merchant. His clothes are travel-worn, and his face is red with anger or excitement. The Romans have sent an embassy to Queen Teuta, he announces to the growing crowd. They demand she stop the piracy or face consequences. Someone in the crowd laughs. What consequences? What can Rome do across the sea? The merchant shakes his head. Don't underestimate them. I've been to Italy. The Romans are not like us. They're organized, disciplined, and they hold grudges. You listen with mild interest, but the affairs of distant kingdoms and republics seem far removed from your daily struggle to earn enough drachmas to feed yourself. With a shrug, you return to your work, the future of the Mediterranean world temporarily forgotten amid the immediate concerns of completing your commission. Months pass, and the seasons change. The hot, dry summer gives way to the milder days of autumn. You continue your routine of work, occasional visits to the public baths, and evenings spent in conversation with friends at a local tavern. Life goes on as it always has. Then one day, startling news reaches Athens. One of the Roman envoys to Illyria has been killed, possibly on the orders of Queen Teuta herself. Even more shocking is what follows. Rome has declared war on Illyria and sent a massive force of 22,000 men and 200 ships across the Adriatic. This news causes a stir even in Athens. Such a force is impressive, and its deployment so far from Roman territory is unprecedented. You discuss it with your friends that evening over watered wine. The Romans are fools, says one of your companions, a merchant who trades in olive oil. They know nothing of the eastern seas. The Illyrians will make short work of them. I'm not so sure, counters another, older man who once served as a soldier. I've heard the Roman legions are formidable. They defeated Carthage after all. But that was different, argues the first man. This is not their territory. They don't understand our part of the world. You listen to the debate without offering an opinion. Politics has always seemed a dangerous game to you, best left to those with the wealth and connections to play it safely. Still, you can't help but feel a vague unease about these developments. That unease proves justified when barely a year later, news arrives that the Roman campaign has been a complete success. Queen Teuta has been forced to accept humiliating peace terms, giving up much of her territory, and agreeing to pay tribute to Rome. The Roman Republic now has a foothold across the Adriatic, much closer to Greece than ever before. For the first time, you begin to wonder if perhaps Athens and all of Greece should be paying more attention to this rising power in the West. More years pass. You grow older, your hair beginning to gray at the temples, your back aching more persistently after a long day's work. The world around you continues to change. Philip V becomes king of Macedon after the death of Antigonus. In the West, rumors spread of another conflict brewing between Rome and Carthage. Then, in 218 BC, those rumors become reality. Hannibal, the brilliant Carthaginian general, crosses the Alps with an army that includes war elephants and invades Italy itself. All of Greece watches with interest as Rome faces its greatest challenge yet. You find yourself following the news of this distant war more closely than you would have imagined. Each report of a Carthaginian victory sends ripples of excitement through Athens, not because the Athenians particularly love Carthage, but because anything that humbles the increasingly powerful and arrogant Romans seems like good news. Hannibal defeated them at Lake Trasimene. announces one of your friends excitedly one evening. They say the Romans lost 15,000 men, and now he's in Italy itself, adds another. Imagine, Rome could fall. The prospect seems to delight everyone in the tavern. Everyone except the old soldier, who remains thoughtful. If Rome falls, he says quietly, what then? Do you think Carthage will leave Greece alone if they become the dominant power in the Mediterranean? His words cast a momentary pall over the celebration, but it's quickly forgotten as more wine is poured. Yet you find yourself pondering his question later that night as you lie on your sleeping mat, staring at the ceiling beams of your modest home. What you don't know, what no one in Athens yet knows, is that King Philip V of Macedon is asking himself the same question, but he's reaching a very different conclusion. Seeing Rome vulnerable, Philip decides to ally himself with Hannibal, hoping to expand Macedonian power while Rome is distracted. It's a fateful decision that will eventually bring Roman legions to Greek soil. The seasons turn into years. Reports from the west are confused and contradictory. Hannibal remains undefeated in the field, yet Rome somehow endures. The war drags on, and gradually, attention in Athens turns to more immediate concerns. For you, those concerns include the increasing pain in your joints that makes your work more difficult each year, and the rising cost of food in the market. You're getting by, but barely. You've never married. You couldn't afford to support a family on your meager earnings, and sometimes the loneliness weighs on you as heavily as your physical discomforts. Then one morning, as you're selecting vegetables at a market stall, a commotion erupts at the edge of the agora. A messenger has arrived, clearly having ridden hard to bring news. A crowd quickly gathers around him. You move closer, curious despite yourself. The messenger's voice carries across the market. Rome has defeated Carthage. Hannibal has been recalled to defend his homeland. The Roman general Scipio has invaded Africa itself. A murmur runs through the crowd. This is unexpected news. Despite all his victories, Hannibal has been outmaneuvered strategically, and Rome, rather than collapsing, has somehow found the strength to take the war to Carthaginian territory. What of King Philip? Someone asks. He allied with Carthage. The messenger's expression is grim. The Romans have not forgotten. Even now, they prepare to turn their attention eastward. A chill runs down your spine despite the warm spring air. Suddenly, Rome doesn't seem so distant anymore. The First Macedonian War, as it will later be called, ends without much direct conflict between Roman and Macedonian forces. Rome, still focused on defeating Carthage, is content with a peace treaty that essentially maintains the status quo. But you and every other Greek with any political awareness know it's only a temporary reprieve. And indeed, just 3 years after finally defeating Carthage at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, Rome turns its full attention to the east. Complaints from Rhodes and Pergamum about Macedonian aggression give the Romans the pretext they need to declare war on Philip V. This time, there will be no half measures. The Second Macedonian War has begun. You're older now, approaching what Greeks consider old age. Your hands, once so skilled and strong, are gnarled with arthritis. You've had to take on an apprentice to help with the more demanding aspects of metalworking, but you still visit the agora daily, as much for the news and conversation as for supplies. And the news these days is all about Rome. They've landed at Apollonia, says a merchant who specializes in imported Italian wine. 20,000 legionaries under Consul Galba. The Aetolian League has allied with them against Philip, adds a sailor fresh from the port of Piraeus. And there are rumors that Pergamum and Rhodes have contributed ships. You listen quietly, your heart heavy. The Greeks are doing what they've always done, fighting among themselves, inviting outside powers to help in their internal squabbles. It's how Philip of Macedon, Alexander's father, gained control of Greece a century and a half ago. Now, history seems to be repeating itself, but with Rome in the role of conqueror. What of Athens, you ask? Where do we stand? The question brings uncomfortable silence. Athens, once the proud leader of the Delian League, the city that defied the Persian Empire, is now reduced to a minor player in the great game of Mediterranean politics. Your city has declared for Rome, seeing the Romans as preferable to Macedonian domination. But in truth, Athens has little choice or voice in the matter. As the war progresses, you follow the reports as best you can. The Roman consul, Titus Quinctius Flamininus, has taken command. Unlike his predecessors, he seems to understand Greek politics and speaks the language well. He declares that Rome comes not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, to free the Greek cities from Macedonian oppression. Many Greeks, including many Athenians, believe him. You're not so sure. You've lived long enough to grow skeptical of anyone who claims to wage war for the benefit of others. The decisive moment comes in 197 BC at a place called Cynoscephalae in Thessaly. The Roman legions meet Philip's phalanx in open battle for the first time. The result shocks the Greek world. You hear the news in the agora, delivered by a man who claims his brother fought in the battle. The phalanx drove back the Romans at first, he recounts to the gathered crowd, but the ground was uneven and gaps opened in the formation. The Romans sent their men into those gaps with their short swords, and, he draws a finger across his throat, butchery. 8,000 Macedonians dead, 5,000 captured. Philip barely escaped with his life. You feel something shift in the world at that moment. The phalanx, the Greek military formation that had dominated warfare since the time of Philip II, that had conquered the Persian Empire under Alexander, had been defeated by Roman tactics and discipline. It is as if the foundations of your world have cracked. The terms imposed on Philip V are harsh. He must withdraw from all Greek territories, reduce his fleet to token size, and pay a massive indemnity to Rome. More importantly, he must become a Roman ally, effectively a client king. The next year, at the Isthmian Games, Flamininus makes a dramatic announcement that is soon reported throughout Greece. The Senate and people of Rome, and their commander, Titus Quinctius, having defeated King Philip and the Macedonians in war, declare the following peoples free, without garrison or tribute, in full enjoyment of their ancestral laws: the Corinthians, Phocians, Locrians, Euboeans, Thyotes, Magnesians, Thessalians, and Perrhaebians. The proclamation is met with such jubilation that they say birds flying overhead were stunned by the noise and fell from the sky. Greece is free, no longer under Macedonian control. But you, in your wisdom born of years, understand what many of your fellow Greeks do not. Freedom granted can also be freedom taken away. Rome may call itself a liberator, but it has no intention of leaving the Greek world to its own devices. This is not the end of Roman involvement in Greece, but merely the beginning. You're proven right far sooner than even you expected. Just 5 years after Cynoscephaly, another power threatens Greece: Antiochus III, king of the Seleucid Empire, who has crossed into Europe with his army. Rome, now firmly established as the protector of Greek freedom, once again sends its legions eastward. The Aetolian League, previously Rome's ally against Philip, now switches sides and supports Antiochus. They've realized too late that they've merely exchanged one master for another. But it's a futile gesture. At Thermopylae, the same narrow pass where Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made their famous stand against the Persians, the Romans utterly defeat Antiochus and force him back to Asia. The Romans follow, crossing into Asia Minor and defeating Antiochus again at Magnesia in 190 BC. The Seleucid king is forced to abandon all his territories in Asia Minor and pay an even larger indemnity than was imposed on Philip. And the Aetolians? Rome makes an example of them. Their league is stripped of much of its territory and independence, reduced to a Roman client state. The message to the rest of Greece is clear. Opposition to Rome will not be tolerated. You watch all this unfold from Athens, your body growing frailer as the years pass. You rely more and more on your apprentice, who now does most of the actual metalworking while you supervise and teach. Your world has contracted to your workshop, your modest home, and the short walks between them. But your mind remains sharp, and you continue to follow the shifting politics of Greece and Rome. You see how Rome, having declared the Greeks free, nevertheless keeps its legions in strategic locations. How Roman advisors influence the policies of supposedly independent Greek cities. How Roman merchants and businessmen gradually gain control of more and more of the Greek economy. It is conquest by another name, slower but perhaps more thorough than outright military occupation. Then, in 170 BC, Philip V of Macedon dies and is succeeded by his son, Perseus. The new king chafes under the restrictions imposed by Rome and begins to rebuild Macedonian strength. He forms alliances with other Greek states and even with tribes to the north in Thrace. Rome watches these developments with growing alarm. The memory of Hannibal's invasion is still fresh, and the Senate has no intention of allowing another potential enemy to gain strength. Accusations and counter-accusations fly between Rome and Macedon. Diplomatic missions come and go. Tensions escalate, and in 171 BC Rome declares war on Perseus. The Third Macedonian War has begun. You are very old now, one of the elders of Athens. Your hair is white, your skin wrinkled and spotted with age, your back permanently bent. You can no longer walk to the agora, but friends and your former apprentice bring you news along with food and wine. The war is not going well for Rome at first. Perseus wins several victories, including a significant cavalry engagement at Callinicus. For a brief moment, it seems as if Macedon might reassert itself as a power in Greece. But Rome is relentless. A new consul, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, takes command of the Roman forces in Greece. And in 168 BC, at Pydna, the Roman legions and the Macedonian phalanx meet in battle once more. The result is even more decisive than Cynocephalae. The Macedonian army is virtually annihilated. Perseus flees, only to be captured soon after. He will end his days as a prisoner in Italy. The consequences for Macedon are devastating. The kingdom that had dominated northern Greece since the time of Philip II, that had produced Alexander the Great and conquered half the known world, ceases to exist as a unified state. The Romans divide it into 4 separate republics, each forbidden to have relations with the others. A heavy tribute is imposed, and all the royal mines are closed, destroying the Macedonian economy. As for the rest of Greece, any city or league suspected of having sympathized with Perseus faces Roman retribution. 70 towns in Epirus are destroyed, and 150,000 people are enslaved. The message is brutally clear. Resistance is futile. You receive this news in your bed, where you now spend most of your days. Your former apprentice, now a master craftsman in his own right, sits beside you and holds your frail hand as he tells you what has happened. What will become of Athens, you ask, your voice barely above a whisper. Of Greece? He squeezes your hand gently. We will endure, as we always have. The Romans may control our bodies, but they cannot take our minds, our culture. Already, they send their sons to study with our philosophers. They copy our art, our architecture. In time, perhaps we will conquer them in our own way. You smile weakly, wanting to believe him. But as you drift into sleep, you can't help but wonder if Greece will ever truly be free again. What you cannot know as your eyes close and your breathing slows is that the final act of the Roman conquest of Greece is yet to come. that the Achaean League will make one last desperate bid for independence. That in 146 BC, the same year that Rome finally destroys Carthage, the consul Lucius Mummius will defeat the Achaean army at Corinth and raze that beautiful city to the ground, selling its population into slavery. With that act, all pretense of Greek freedom will end. Greece will formally become the Roman province of Achaia, directly governed by a Roman proconsul. But perhaps it's better that you don't live to see it. Better to die with at least the illusion that something of the old Greece, the Greece of Pericles and Socrates, of democracy and philosophy, might survive under Roman rule. As sleep overtakes you, your muscles relax and your breath slows. The weight of age lifts from your tired bones. For the first time in years, you feel no pain, no stiffness. Your breathing gets deeper, more rhythmic, matching the gentle cadence of waves lapping against the shore of the Aegean. The light fades, and you drift away, leaving behind a world in transition, a world where Greece's golden age is ending, and Rome's is just beginning. A world where two great civilizations have collided, and nothing will ever be the same. Your eyes open to the warm glow of morning light filtering through a small window. You're in a modest but comfortable home in Corinth, once one of the greatest trading cities of Greece. The year is 44 BC, exactly 100 years after Rome's final conquest of Greece, and your life straddles two worlds, the ancient Greek heritage of your ancestors and the Roman present that governs every aspect of your existence. The rough wool of your blanket scratches against your skin as you push yourself up from your sleeping pallet. Your bare feet touch the cool tiles of the floor, sending a slight shiver up your spine despite the warm air outside. You can already hear the city coming to life, the shouts of merchants, the rumble of cartwheels on stone streets, the distant sound of hammers from the shipyards. This Corinth is not the Corinth of old legends. That city was destroyed completely by the Roman consul Lucius Mummius in 146 BC, its buildings razed, its treasures carried off to Rome, its people sold into slavery. For nearly a century, the site lay abandoned, an empty warning of what happened to those who defied Rome's will. But you were born in the new Corinth, the Roman colony founded by Julius Caesar himself just 2 years before your birth. Your father, a Greek from Athens, came here seeking opportunity in the reborn city. Your mother was the daughter of an Italian merchant who settled here among the first colonists. You are, in your very blood, the merging of Greece and Rome that defines the world you live in. As you splash water from a clay basin onto your face, the coolness banishing the last vestiges of sleep, you contemplate the day ahead. You work as a scribe and translator in the office of a Roman official, using your fluency in both Greek and Latin to bridge the gap between the Roman administrators and the local Greek population. It's a respectable position that places you in the middle class of colonial society, neither rich nor poor, neither fully Roman nor entirely Greek. You dress quickly in a simple tunic, its style a blend of Greek and Roman fashions. The fabric is local, but the cut follows the current trend in Italy. Around your shoulders, you drape a light cloak, protection against the morning chill that will burn off once the sun rises higher. Your sandals are well worn, but of good quality, comfortable for walking the steep streets of Corinth. Before leaving your home, I'll take a moment to check your appearance in a small bronze mirror. Your features reflect your mixed heritage. The high forehead and straight nose of your Greek father, the darker complexion and round chin of your Italian mother. Your hair is cut short in the Roman style, though many full-blooded Greeks still wear theirs longer. Such choices are not merely aesthetic in this world where identity is increasingly fluid. The streets outside are already busy. Corinth's position on the narrow isthmus connecting the Peloponnese to the rest of Greece has always made it a crucial trade hub. Under Roman rule, it has regained much of its former commercial importance, though now serving the interests of Rome rather than Greece. You weave through the morning crowd, nodding to acquaintances, a mixture of Roman colonists, Greeks, and visitors from across the Mediterranean. The buildings around you tell the story of the city's rebirth. Roman architectural styles dominate the newer structures, particularly the government buildings and the homes of wealthy colonists. But Greek influences remain visible in many details, from the proportions of columns to the decorative elements adorning even Roman-style buildings. The smell of freshly baked bread draws you to a small bakery tucked into the corner of a side street. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you left home without breaking your fast. The baker, a stout Greek woman whose family has been in the bread business for generations, greets you by name. "The usual," she asks in Greek, already reaching for a small loaf of her specialty, a wheat bread sweetened with honey and studded with dried figs. "Please," you reply in the same language, "and some cheese, if you have it." She wraps the bread in a scrap of linen and adds a small wedge of goat cheese, accepting your coins with a smile. "Did you hear the news?" she asks, leaning forward conspiratorially. "What news?" The baker is known for her gossip as much as her bread, and while you're sometimes skeptical of her more outlandish tales, she often has genuine information before it becomes widely known. "They say Caesar has been murdered," she whispers, her eyes wide. "In Rome, stabbed in their Senate house by his own friends." Your hand freezes halfway to your mouth, the bread forgotten. "Caesar dead? Are you certain?" She nods vigorously. "A merchant ship arrived last night from Brundisium. The captain told my cousin's husband, who works at the docks. They say it happened on the Ides of March." Your mind races. Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, victor in Rome's civil war, dictator of the Republic, and the founder of this very colony where you live, assassinated by his fellow Romans. If true, this is momentous news that will affect the entire Mediterranean world, including your corner of it. "I should go," you say, tucking the bread and cheese into your satchel. "Thank you for telling me." As you continue toward the administrative buildings where you work, you notice small groups of people huddled in conversation, their expressions worried. It seems the baker is not the only one who's heard the news. Roman citizens look particularly concerned. Their status and security in this distant colony depend on stability in Rome itself. The governmental complex comes into view, its imposing facade built in the Roman style, but with subtle Greek elements that make it less foreign to local eyes. This architectural blending is deliberate. Rome has learned that total suppression of local culture creates resentment, while selective adoption and adaptation fosters acceptance. Inside, the usual ordered calm of the administrative offices has been replaced by barely controlled chaos. Officials hurry from room to room, documents clutched in their hands. Clerks and scribes like yourself stand in small clusters, their work temporarily forgotten as they discuss the rumors. Your supervisor, Gaius Septimius, a middle-aged Roman from central Italy who has been in Corinth for a decade, beckons you urgently when he spots you entering. "There you are," he says in Latin, his voice low but intense. "You've heard, I assume, about Caesar." "Yes, just now in the market. Is it confirmed?" He nods grimly. "Official word arrived by special courier an hour ago. Caesar is dead, stabbed 23 times by a group of senators led by Brutus and Cassius." He runs a hand through his thinning hair. "Gods, what a mess! The whole republic could collapse into civil war again." The implications of his words sink in. You remember the stories your father told you about the last Roman civil war? How it spilled over into Greece, bringing armies from both sides to ravage the land. Battles were fought near Thessalonica and Athens. Athenians chose the losing side, supporting Pompey over Caesar, and suffered for it afterward, though the city was spared outright destruction. What happens now, you ask, keeping your voice steady despite your growing unease? That's what we're trying to Ermin, Septimius replies. For now, we maintain order and continue our duties. Rome endures, with or without Caesar. He straightens his toga, a habitual gesture when he's trying to project authority. I need you to translate an announcement for the Greek population. It must be posted in the agora by midday. You nod, accepting the tablet he hands you. The Latin text is brief but carefully worded, acknowledging Caesar's death while emphasizing that Roman authority in the province remains unchanged. There is no mention of who might succeed the dictator or what political changes might follow in Rome. As you settle at your desk to craft a Greek translation that captures both the letter and spirit of the announcement, your mind wanders to the larger questions raised by Caesar's assassination. You've lived your entire life in a world dominated by Rome, as did your parents before you. The Greek independence your grandparents might have remembered in their youth seems like ancient history. Yet beneath the surface of Roman rule, Greek culture has not just survived, but in many ways thrived. The Romans may have conquered Greece militarily and politically, but they've also been captivated by Greek art, literature, philosophy, and science. As the Roman poet Horace famously observed, "Captured Greece has captured her fierce conqueror." You see this cultural exchange daily in your work as a translator. Roman officials study Greek philosophy and send their children to be educated by Greek tutors. Greek architects and artists find eager patrons among wealthy Romans. Even the religions have begun to blend, with Roman gods identified with their Greek counterparts: Jupiter with Zeus, Mars with Ares, Venus with Aphrodite. Your translation complete, you hand it to a clerk for copying onto the official announcement boards. Then, at Septimius's direction, you spend the rest of the morning drafting letters to minor officials in outlying villages, informing them of Caesar's death and instructing them to maintain order. By midday, your hand is cramped from hours of careful writing. Septimius, seeing your discomfort, dismisses you for a meal break. "Take an hour," he says. "Clear your head, but don't go far. We may need you this afternoon if there are developments." Grateful for the respite, you step out into the bright sunlight of a spring day. The main forum is crowded now, people gathered around the announcement boards where your translation has been posted. The mood is tense but not panicked. Corinth has prospered under Roman rule, and while few here would have personally loved Caesar, stability is good for business. You find a small wine shop with a view of the forum and order a cup of watered wine and a plate of olives to go with the bread and cheese from the morning. The shopkeeper, recognizing you as someone who works in the administration, offers a small discount. "Troubling news," he comments as he pours your wine. "What do you think will happen now?" You choose your words carefully. As a government employee, your opinions carry weight, and in uncertain times, careless talk can be dangerous. "Rome has weathered crisis before," you say diplomatically. "The Republic will continue." But even as you speak, you wonder if that's true. Caesar had been making himself increasingly powerful, taking on titles and honors unprecedented in Roman history. Some feared or hoped he planned to make himself king, a title detested in the Roman Republic since the overthrow of the monarchy 5 centuries earlier. Was his assassination a last defense of Republican values, as the killers would no doubt claim, or merely another power play in Rome's increasingly factional politics? And what of Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, or Octavian, Caesar's young grandnephew and adopted son? They would surely seek vengeance against the assassins. The pieces are in place for another civil war, and Greece, your home, lies directly between Rome and the eastern provinces where Brutus and Cassius have fled. Your thoughts are interrupted by a commotion in the forum. A centurion from the small garrison that maintains order in Corinth is addressing the crowd, his voice carrying across the open space. "Citizens of Rome, allies, and provincials," he calls out in accented but understandable Greek. Be assured that the peace and security of Corinth remains our highest priority. All garrison troops are on alert. The night curfew will be strictly enforced until further notice. Anyone spreading disorder or rebellion will be dealt with harshly. The crowd receives this announcement with murmurs rather than protests. Most people here, Greek and Roman alike, value the Pax Romana, the Roman peace that has brought prosperity to the region after centuries of warfare between rival Greek states. You finish your meal quickly and return to the administrative complex. As you expected, the afternoon is busy with additional correspondence and translations. Sunset finds you still at your desk, eyes strained from hours of detailed work by increasingly inadequate light. "Enough," Septimius says finally, noticing your fatigue. "Go home. Rest. Tomorrow will be another long day." The streets are quieter than usual as you make your way home, the normal evening bustle subdued by uncertainty and the enhanced military presence. Torches at major intersections cast flickering light and long shadows. Roman soldiers patrol in pairs, their armor glinting in the torchlight, hands resting on the hilts of their swords. You reach your home without incident and light an oil lamp, its gentle glow filling the single room with warm light and the faint scent of olive oil. The day's events have left you mentally exhausted, yet your mind continues to churn with questions about what might lie ahead. A rap at your door startles you from your thoughts. Cautiously, you open it to find Timmus, a childhood friend who now works as a merchant's assistant, specializing in the wine trade between Greece and Italy. "May I come in?" he asks, glancing over his shoulder at the empty street. You step aside to admit him, curious about this unexpected visit. Timmus is normally cheerful and open, but tonight his expression is serious, his movements tense. "Have you heard anything more?" he asks without preamble. "About what's happening in Rome?" "Nothing beyond the official announcement," you reply, pouring him a cup of water from your clay pitcher. "Caesar is dead, killed by conspirators led by Brutus and Cassius. The government continues to function. That's all we know for certain." Timmus takes the cup, but doesn't drink. "There's talk in the merchant quarter," he says, lowering his voice despite the privacy of your home. "Some say this could be an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" You keep your tone neutral, though a sense of unease begins to creep up your spine. "For Greece." His eyes meet yours, intense and searching. "For independence." If Rome falls into civil war again, their grip on the provinces will weaken. This could be our chance to reclaim what was lost a century ago. You stare at him, momentarily speechless. The thought is so foreign to your worldview that you struggle to process it. Independence from Rome? The concept seems as anachronistic as reverting to bronze weapons or worshipping the Titans instead of the Olympian gods. "That's dangerous talk," you say finally, "and unrealistic. Greece has been Roman for generations. We don't even know how to be independent anymore." "Our ancestors did," Timmus counters. "The blood of free Greeks flows in our veins. Don't tell me you've never imagined what it would be like if we governed ourselves again, if we didn't send our wealth to Rome as taxes, if we didn't have to bow to their proconsuls and praetors." In truth, you have occasionally indulged in such fantasies, especially when reading the ancient histories of Athens and Sparta in their glory days. But they were just that, fantasies, as disconnected from your real life as the myths of gods and heroes. "The world has changed, Timmus," you say gently. "Rome isn't just our conqueror anymore. It's part of who we are now. Look at me. I'm half Italian. Look at Corinth, a Roman colony built on Greek soil. We can't simply turn back time. So we accept our chains because they're familiar?" His voice rises slightly, frustration evident. "Because they're comfortable? Our great-grandparents fought against Roman rule. They died for Greek freedom, and they lost, you remind him brutally. Remember what happened to the original Corinth? It was destroyed so thoroughly that nothing remained but ashes. Would you risk that again? The conversation continues in this vein for some time, neither of you convincing the other. Finally, Timus rises to leave, the untouched cup of water still full on your small table. "Just think about it," he says at the door. "Things are changing. We should be ready." After he's gone, you sink onto your sleeping mat, troubled by the encounter. Could Timus be right? Is there genuine sentiment for Greek independence simmering beneath the surface of Roman provincial life? And if so, what would happen if it boiled over in the uncertainty following Caesar's death? More personally, where would you stand in such a conflict? Your job, your position in society, your very identity is built around the Roman-Greek synthesis that Timus seems ready to tear apart. Yet you are still Greek in many ways. In your language, in your understanding of the world, in your connection to this land that was ancient when Rome was still a village on the Tiber. Sleep comes slowly that night, and when it does, your dreams are troubled by shadowy figures in togas and warriors in bronze armor battling across landscapes that shift between the Rome you've never seen and the Greece you know. You wake at dawn, your body tense, your mind still grappling with the questions raised by Timus's visit. But the practical concerns of daily life soon assert themselves. You must work, you must eat, you must navigate the complex reality of your world rather than debate hypothetical futures. The next several weeks pass in a blur of activity. News from Rome arrives in fragments, sometimes contradictory. Mark Antony has taken control. No, Octavian has raised an army. The Senate has granted amnesty to Caesar's killers. No, they've been declared public enemies. The situation seems to change with each ship that arrives from Italy. In Corinth itself, life continues with only minor disruptions. The Roman authorities maintain a heightened military presence, and travel to and from the city is more closely monitored. There are occasional arrests of individuals suspected of fermenting unrest, though most are released after questioning. You see Timus only in passing during this period, and your conversations are limited to brief public exchanges. Whether he is continuing to explore ideas of Greek independence, you don't know, and part of you prefers it that way. Your position in the administration makes any association with potential rebellion dangerous, not just to yourself, but to him as well. Then, nearly 2 months after Caesar's death, definitive news arrives from Rome. The Second Triumvirate has been formed, an alliance between Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, pooling their resources and authority to hunt down Caesar's assassins and restore order to the Republic. Their first act is a series of proscriptions, death lists targeting not only those directly involved in Caesar's murder, but also political opponents and individuals whose wealth could fund the triumvir's armies. Hundreds of Roman senators and equites are executed, their property confiscated. The news sends shockwaves through Corinth's Roman community. Many have relatives or patrons in Rome who might be affected. Some fear that the proscriptions might extend to the provinces, targeting those with known Republican sympathies. For the Greek population, the news is received with more detachment. Roman political bloodletting is concerning primarily for its potential impact on local stability and commerce. Few Greeks mourn the deaths of Roman elites they never knew. But the next ship from Italy brings news that affects everyone. Brutus and Cassius have fled to the eastern provinces and are raising massive armies. The triumvirs are preparing to pursue them. Greece, lying directly in the path between Rome and the east, will inevitably become a battlefield once again. Your supervisor calls a meeting of all staff in the administrative complex. His face is grave as he addresses you in the atrium, his voice echoing slightly off the marble columns. "We have received instructions from Rome," he announces. The province is to prepare for the arrival of troops loyal to the triumvirs. Supplies are to be stockpiled, roads maintained, harbor facilities made ready. This will require additional taxation and labor obligations from all communities. A murmur runs through the assembled staff. Everyone understands what this means. The burden of Rome's civil war will fall heavily on the provinces, as it always does. Greek farmers will feed Roman soldiers. Greek laborers will build Roman fortifications. Greek merchants will watch their overseas trade disrupted by naval operations. Additionally, Septimius continues, there have been reports of agitation in some areas, talk of using Rome's internal conflict as an opportunity for provincial rebellion. His gaze sweeps across the room, lingering momentarily on you and other staff of Greek descent. Such talk is treason and will be dealt with accordingly. Anyone with information about seditious activities is obligated to report it immediately. Your thoughts fly to Timus and your conversation months ago. Was it just idle talk, or has he become involved in something more serious? And if he has, what is your duty? To your friend? To your employer? To your divided heritage? The meeting concludes with assignments of additional duties to handle the increased administrative load. As a skilled translator, you are tasked with preparing communications to the Greek communities throughout the region, explaining the new requirements and encouraging compliance. The work is grueling and thankless. Each night you return home exhausted, your writing hand cramped, your mind numbed by hours of crafting language that softens harsh demands without diluting their essential message. Pay these taxes, provide these supplies, offer your sons as auxiliary troops, all for a war between Romans that will determine which Roman masters rule over you. 2 weeks into this new routine, you're walking home in the fading light of evening when a hooded figure steps from a shadowed doorway into your path. Your hand moves instinctively to the small knife at your belt. Street crime is rare in Corinth, but not unknown. "Don't you recognize me?" The figure pushes back his hood just enough for you to see his face in the dim light. It's Timus, though thinner than when you last saw him, with dark circles under his eyes. "What are you doing?" you hiss, glancing around to ensure no one is watching. "There's increased patrols after sunset." "I need to speak with you," he says urgently. "Not here. Follow me." Every instinct tells you to refuse, to continue home and pretend this encounter never happened. But curiosity and concern for your old friend override caution. You follow as he leads you through narrow side streets to a small, run-down shrine to Poseidon that dates from before the Roman rebuilding of Corinth. Inside, oil lamps burn with low flames, casting just enough light to navigate the space. The shrine is empty save for a weathered statue of the sea god and simple offerings of dried fish and small coins. "I'm leaving Corinth tonight," Timus says without preamble once you're both inside. "A fishing boat will take me and others to Euboea. From there, we'll make our way east." "East?" You stare at him, uncomprehending at first, then with growing alarm as understanding dawns. "To join Brutus and Cassius? Have you lost your mind? They're offering freedom to Greek cities that support them against the triumvirs," he explains, his voice intense with conviction. "This is the chance I spoke of, the opportunity to break Rome's grip on Greece." "It's suicide," you argue. "Even if Brutus and Cassius win, which is far from certain, they're still Romans. They'll still want to control Greece. They're just using Greek discontent to gain support against their enemies." Timus shakes his head. "You don't understand. There's a real movement building, not just here, but across Greece. Athens, Sparta, Thebes. The old powers are stirring. If we fight together, coordinate our efforts, we can use Rome's civil war to leverage our independence." The passion in his voice almost makes you believe him. Almost. But your work in the administration has given you a clearer view of Roman power. You've seen the reports, the troop numbers, the resources Rome can bring to bear, even while fighting itself. It won't work, you say softly. Rome is too strong, too entrenched, and Greece is too divided. For every city that joins Brutus, another will support Antony. We'll just be fighting Rome's civil war for them, killing fellow Greeks in the process. So we do nothing? Accept whatever master Rome gives us next. We survive, you counter. We preserve what matters. Our culture, our philosophy, our art. We continue to influence Rome from within, as we've been doing for generations. The Greece of Pericles and Leonidas may be gone, but our ideas live on, spreading throughout the Roman world. You can see your words aren't persuading him. His mind is made up, his course set, and perhaps there's a part of you that envies his certainty, his willingness to risk everything. Timus's visit. But the practical concerns of daily life soon assert themselves. You must work, you must eat, you must navigate the complex reality of your world rather than debate hypothetical futures. The next several weeks pass in a blur of activity. News from Rome arrives in fragments, sometimes contradictory. Mark Antony has taken control. No, Octavian has raised an army. The Senate has granted amnesty to Caesar's killers. No, they've been declared public enemies. The situation seems to change with each ship that arrives from Italy. In Corinth itself, life continues with only minor disruptions. The Roman authorities maintain a heightened military presence, and travel to and from the city is more closely monitored. There are occasional arrests of individuals suspected of fermenting unrest, though most are released after questioning. You see Timus only in passing during this period, and your conversations are limited to brief public exchanges. Whether he is continuing to explore ideas of Greek independence, you don't know, and part of you prefers it that way. Your position in the administration makes any association with potential rebellion dangerous, not just to yourself, but to him as well. Then, nearly 2 months after Caesar's death, definitive news arrives from Rome. The Second Triumvirate has been formed, an alliance between Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, pooling their resources and authority to hunt down Caesar's assassins and restore order to the Republic. Their first act is a series of proscriptions, death lists targeting not only those directly involved in Caesar's murder, but also political opponents and individuals whose wealth could fund the triumvir's armies. Hundreds of Roman senators and equites are executed, their property confiscated. The news sends shockwaves through Corinth's Roman community. Many have relatives or patrons in Rome who might be affected. Some fear that the proscriptions might extend to the provinces, targeting those with known Republican sympathies. For the Greek population, the news is received with more detachment.